In this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we speak with Fujitsu to discuss its recent trial work with AT&T on the Open ROADM technology. All right, well, thanks for joining us in this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief at RCR Wireless News. And this week we are joined by Blake Hlavaty, who's the Software Solutions Architect at Fujitsu, to talk a bit about ROADM technology and also some of the work it's done recently with AT&T on the technology. So, hey, Blake, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Very good. Well, let's start off with, for those who don't know much about Fujitsu, I mean, obviously, the company's been around for quite a while, but maybe for those who don't know much about it, if you want to give us a quick overview of the company, kind of how you participate in this section of the telecom space.
Sure. Well, you know, Fujitsu Limited is a big global company, right? So the group that I work with is called Fujitsu Network Communications. And we have a long history and have been a leader in the optical networking space way back, you know, with Ciena technology and then into WDM and DWDM technology, ROADMs, and even packet over optical. So we have services, software, and also deliver hardware, have a hardware equipment that we deliver in that space and supporting, you know, a wide range of customers from carriers, large and small, to enterprise. So that's kind of the background on Fujitsu Network Communications.
Got it. Yeah, I'm sure if anybody's been in the space for any amount of time, I'm sure you've seen the Fujitsu name around here and there. So yeah, I'm sure people are at least know the name, and probably, you know, a little insight there on the company is always great to have too. So I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, so I guess on the topic for today, I think we want to touch a bit on that ROADM technology and maybe start with again, it's kind of, maybe it's not a new technology, but I know some people aren't quite up to speed. I know myself included is not probably as well versed on it as others are. But maybe provide a little background on the technology itself and kind of what it does and kind of how it's used in the telecom space.
Yeah. So ROADM, first of all, ROADM, right? Reconfigurable optical add drop multiplexer, right? There's a mouthful for you. Yeah, what ROADM, you know, back with fiber optics, telecommunications, right? Where the goal is just massive amounts of bandwidth down, you know, tiny little fibers, right? And this goes back to the Sonnet days where you're talking about an OC3 or an OC192, which is like 10 gig. And then to now we're getting into 100 gig and then even beyond, right? You know, 100 gigabits of data per second, right, down the fiber. But where ROADM comes in is, first of all, is being able to not only put like a single light wave down a fiber strand, but now with ROADM we can put multiple waves, right, on a single strand. So imagine each one of those waves carrying 100 gigabit signal, and we can do up to 96 waves, right, on a single strand of fiber, right? So that becomes, it's pretty incredible when you think about the bandwidth that you can really carry. So, you know, you sort of relate that to what's going on in our industry, right? You know, we hear everywhere that just bandwidth is going crazy, the demand is exponential, and you start to think about how are we going to transport all of this, and you just see that fiber optics, ROADM technology is just going to be crucial in delivering, you know, that large amount of bandwidth that ultimately our network and industry is going to demand. So that's sort of the first bit, is just the capacity of it, right? Sort of the next step in ROADM is that reconfigurable aspect. But the ability to direct those light streams and change direction, and maybe have, you know, we have multiple degrees on a ROADM, so you can send one light wave one way, you can bring in one color and then send it out of a different degree, right? So being able to move that around. In the past, the way this has been done is we pretty much would build these connections and circuits through the network, sort of individual streams of light that we're directing through the network, and then they would be very static, right? You sort of build it, and it stays that way for 30 years, right? And it provides a great service to a customer with lots of bandwidth. We're moving in sort of a new era of this technology, which comes around. You'll hear the terms like CD or CDC, which stand for like colorless, directionless, or colorless, directionless, contentionless. But then this gets to the point where we can retune the light. We can take a service and put it at a different frequency, and then it gives us the ability to automate how we route that light to the network. So before it was very static and sort of set. Mm-hmm. Well, now we've enabled, now we can move it around. We can move those circuits around to the network by changing sort of the direction, literally using mirrors in some case to change the direction of the light, and also, changing the frequency that it's tuned to.
So it's magic really, right?
It is absolute magic. Yeah, it is literally smoke and mirrors. Yeah, so to some extent, yeah. But that CD/CDC is really where SDN gets really interesting with ROADM technology, because now we have a platform that we can dynamically shift. So having a programmable controller above it, that facilitates a lot more capabilities. So kind of interesting time there.
Yeah, it makes sense. So obviously, it's not just about making, obviously the additional capacity is a big part of this. Like you said, obviously the telecom space, capacity is what everybody's talking about nowadays, but it's actually like it's making this to be more like smart fiber, really. It's not just putting something in the ground and just letting it, just run a bunch of capacity. It's actually being able to control what it's doing using software basically to kind of, make it a smarter type of infrastructure.
Yeah, more intelligent, more reactive. You even start to think about self-healing, or even predictive, and be able to adjust and anticipate failures. I mean, you can kind of start to dream about what the possibilities are, right? Yeah.
Well, so I guess how far along the process are we in? I guess, or are you guys in developing this technology? I mean, is it something that's ready to go? I mean, I know obviously we'll talk a bit about the trial with AT&T, but I guess how far along the process are we in terms of getting this out there so it's actually commercially ready?
We're making the steps. I think the hardware is coming with deploying from the hardware standpoint. We have the ROADM technology that we've developed. We're moving into the CD, and that's going out and in production now. And there's more steps available. The capacity is increasing all the time, right? The exciting step in moving in with like where Open ROADM fits in is that now implementing the controller that can work with that hardware and take advantage of the capabilities that it has. And then, and kind of working toward kind of more open devices at the lower layer with these optical, so having more of an open interface, and then that abstraction layer that comes with SDN, right, and the modeling, and we'll talk more about that with the trial. But that's really the phase of what we're implementing and developing and kind of testing right now, getting, kind of in the process of first rolling out.
Got it. So I guess at this point, is the physical part of it kind of more along the lines of being ready as opposed to the software part of it, or are they both kind of still need a little bit of work? I guess, where do you see those parts in terms of the development part of it?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of look across the industry that, ROADM has been there, so it's the sort of that CD/CD is what's coming on top of it, and it's coming now, right? It's coming out to the industry now. We have some products. There's some other vendors in the space that can fit that. With the software piece, it's, we're creating that infrastructure. We're bringing in some new technologies that are making things exciting, like some of the open source software that we're bringing in, more open interfaces to these control systems, which hasn't always been the case with, like optical control systems in the past. They've been more proprietary. Yeah. So we have these, they're available, and you're starting to see them to come out into the market. We're not from some of the other players also, but it's these we're sort of in the phase of the first push out to the market, I think.
Makes sense. So I guess, maybe a good time to touch a bit on, I guess, in the trial that came along with AT&T. I know AT&T, and you guys announced, I think this was just late last year, I think it was completion of the trial. I think it was in Dallas area where you guys had the trial going on. I guess, can you talk a little bit about, maybe first of all, how you guys got in, contact with AT&T to start the trial, I guess, and then maybe we could touch on actually part of the trial.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we have a long history with AT&T. Certainly, and I kind of talked about our leadership in the ROADM space, not only from the hardware but also in our software development. And as SDN became, as you sort of saw it move into telecom, we we started work on really a new controller from the ground up. It's our Vertura SDN controller, but we wanted to bring in, a more modular architecture, something that was more open, because you can obviously see that was sort of the direction it fit into, kind of that e-comp architecture that we were looking for. So, we had a lot of discussions with AT&T and where the Vertura SDN controller fits if you sort of look at the e-comp architecture, but the network controllers kind of at the bottom, Vertura would be that controller for the ROADM network. So that's kind of where it fits. And then below that would be the hardware. And for the trial, we had the Fujitsu provided some of the hardware, but also Ciena provided some of the hardware that fit into that Open ROADM model. So that's kind of where we fit in there, and kind of how we got involved.
Got it. And then the trial itself, what was involved in that? What did you guys actually, what was the trial about? What did you guys actually trial out there?
Yeah, so the trial was to carry some production traffic and get it into a multi-vendor environment, right? Which in its own right, is a big accomplishment. Yeah. So a lot of collaboration with AT&T, working with the Open ROADM MSA, a lot of great collaboration with Ciena, and that was really a big part of the trial. Everyone sort of being able to work together, collaborate. We literally had, like Fujitsu developers on the phone with Ciena developers, working through, some of the issues that came up. So yeah, the multi-vendor aspect, definitely a big part, kind of getting into the trial. So,
yeah. And was that kind of the biggest takeaway from the trial, was the fact that it did kind of show that you guys could work using open platforms basically in a multi-vendor environment with an operator, obviously, who is really focused on this open platform. And obviously their SDN, they're doing a lot with their Domain 2.0 program is pretty large, and they're talking a lot about the open aspect of that. I'm guessing that's the biggest takeaway from the project itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is that we can do it. Right? I mean, I think there was a lot of, even from the beginning of talking about this, right? I mean, there was some maybe people were a little suspicious. Does this belong at this level of telecom? This is layer one. We're down where digital meets analog, right? At that level where circuits have been up for 30 years. Do we want to bring this dynamic aspect into this? Do we want to bring a multi-vendor environment down there? But I think that first step is really important, and to get through it and to say, look, not only can we do it, we did it. And here it is. So I think that's going to be big for the industry, just to start to get everybody's, I think we can pick up the pace now. We're getting through that first step. It's a big mind shift for everyone in the industry. We did it. We established a multi-vendor ROADM network and controlled it using an SDN platform, right? And deployed. So pretty big takeaway. I think the next one would be the collaboration aspect. That was the big takeaway, and just keeping those lines of communication very open. Even it requires sort of a different mindset from everyone involved to come in and to work at that level and to maybe speak on a daily basis. We had several meetings where we were in the room with the different vendors, with AT&T, working through some of the problems, discussing how we wanted the device models to look in the MSA, making alterations as we went to those device models and re-implementing and integrating again and testing. And that's just, it requires a new level of collaboration to kind of to move in this direction to pull this off.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess on the first point there, and obviously the robustness of this has got to be a big part, because obviously telecom has got certain service level expectations that people in the industry understand, but people outside the industry maybe don't quite understand. And I know whenever I talk to companies who are coming into the SDN or NFV space from the data center world or kind of the outside world coming in, it seems like there's always perhaps a little bit of disconnect between their expectations and what they think telecom needs. And obviously for Fujitsu, who's been in the space for a long time working with telecom operators, you guys have a probably a little better understanding of what carrier grade means to operators out there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think we do. I think, a lot of it comes from our history, right? And you sort of think about some of the early or the previous technologies, you still hear some of the terms used around with Sonnet a lot, right? You hear things like 5 nines reliability, and that kind of comes from that. You hear things like 50 millisecond failover, right? That kind of comes from that. But those expectations carry through. We've had some conversations with customers earlier, and they actually say that their expectations for reliability are going up from their customers because customers, they're becoming more and more reliant. They're moving all of their business critical operations to the cloud, not to use a really overused term, but they're moving it there, so they're more dependent on that connectivity. So the robustness, the reliability, it's even more important today.
Yeah. And I guess in that collaboration aspect, then I know that's always been maybe a bit of a challenge initially in this open source world, is making sure that everybody's kind of on the same page. I mean, ideally, the engineers are always all about collaboration. It seems like from that level they understand it, but there's always the marketing aspects and legal aspects and things like that, which tend to get in the way sometimes. But it seems like at least from this trial, like you said, kind of the work with Ciena and with AT&T seemed like it was very collaborative. I guess, are you hoping, or I guess, do you guys see that type of collaboration can continue going forward, do you think? Or is that still going to be a bit of a challenge as you kind of move along the process here?
No, I think it has to. I think it has to move forward. And I'm going to take it one step farther. I think that type of collaboration becomes a competitive advantage. Right. I think the companies that will succeed as we move into SDN, NFV, as open software becomes more prevalent, will be the ones who can collaborate with other organizations, the ones who sort of build out those partnerships. I'll say that even from your product aspect, right? It won't be just enough to have a good product. You'll have to have a good product that works with a lot of other people's products, right? The interface will be as critical to the success as the internal operation itself. So I think collaboration not only between the companies but also between the products it's just critical moving into this sort of new era of telecom and communications.
Yeah, and it did seem like too, having the operators who are obviously the end customers a lot of the times, having them really kind of pushing and wanting this open type of collaborative environment out there, I'm guessing it's helping the process. I mean, obviously some of the vendors would move down that road anyway, but some of the vendors probably would not. And so having the big guy there, the big operator saying, hey, this is what we want, I'm sure that kind of helps the process along a little bit as well.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And, I remember some meetings that we had, but we'd kind of, be in the room and with some of the different vendors and with, and service providers. And, the service providers would just kind of continue to just kind of listen, but drive home that we wanted to keep the solution open. We wanted to keep in mind that, hey, this not only needs to work for the vendors in this room, but if other people want to work with the system, later on, that we had to keep all of that in mind. And that was good, right? They sort of let the vendors work out the issues, but just sort of made sure that, hey, kept in everyone's mind that we sort of maintain the openness of what we were building, right? Yeah. Keep that in mind. So I think it was very helpful.
Yeah, very helpful. Makes a lot of sense. And I guess, are you seeing pretty good support from the open source community? I mean, I know Linux Foundation and the various permutations coming off of them, and obviously the other ones that are out there as well. There was a lot. It seems like there's enough support out there for this move towards open source. Some might say there's maybe too much support, but I guess, are you seeing pretty good, collaboration support from that community kind of helping you guys down this road as well?
Yeah, we're seeing good support. We work closely with Linux and ODL groups, and great for them for building. I know there's a lot of work in just building and maintaining these communities, but it's kind of two-way, right? So then the vendors are working with those communities, and then we need to provide and kind of receive from those relationships, and so it's important that everyone involved, stay engaged, and but I think we're definitely getting good support from those right now, and it's exciting to kind of see the continuous process that they made, and really even to go to some of the, be a part of those communities, go to the summits, feel the excitement at the summits of what everyone's kind of building and where the challenges are. But, there's a lot of momentum around a lot of it right now. And it's neat to see that play out and kind of be a part of it, kind of feed off that energy when you get back your company and go to the day-to-day,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I know, whenever I go to those shows, I come back from those things and I'm always like, man, this stuff is so awesome. It's ready to go. It's fantastic. I mean, it takes a little while to kind of come off that high a little bit, but yeah, it does seem like there's always a good excitement coming from those events. So
right.
That's always a big part of it as well. So, well, I guess maybe it's a final kind of question for you. As you look ahead a little bit, what are maybe some of the challenges that you see kind of still facing the market in terms of kind of advancing both ROADM, but also just kind of in general, the whole move towards software? I mean, obviously you're pretty deep inside of a lot of these operations here. So I'm sure your viewpoint might be different from a lot of other people. Well, I guess from your point of view, what do you see as maybe a big challenge or two kind of going forward for what you guys need to do there?
Yeah, I mean, I think across the industry, what the next challenge sort of on the horizon, right? Like what we're building now is we're kind of taking blank slate and putting in, SDN and software controlled and model driven, technologies. But especially at our level, at layer one, at the optical level, there is a lot of equipment that's been out there for 20 plus years and is still, passing light and generating revenue, right? So that legacy network is important and it's there, So I think the next big challenge is now, how do we start to live in that hybrid world where we have our legacy network, we have our SDN and SDN control. How much can we roll under SDN? How do we interop? Where we are, in optical transport, it's sort of like it's never that you sort of transition to an end state and now you're there. It's sort of like just this constant state of transition, right? A new technology comes in, but the old is always still there, right? So to be successful in that space, to really for the technology to take hold, we're going to have to start to roll in the legacy equipment and where it fits. So I think that's the next challenge as kind of an industry for us to go tackle.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to tackle because, again, that like you said, that the hybrid environment that we're going to operate in for probably some time. Obviously, the operators want to keep that as short as possible because operating two different kind of networks is never ideal. But you're right, it's going to be a challenge to kind of make that transition and making sure everybody's comfortable with that transition. That eventually you do have to kind of turn those old systems off. And once you do that, you got to make sure everything's still working well. So that's going to be an interesting way to kind of see how that all kind of plays out.
Yeah. I think it will be. I think there'll be a mix. And one element is it, right? Like when you're kind of doing greenfield, you can just build one solution, right? But when you get into this brownfield legacy, every service provider's problem is going to be different. And it's going to have to be approached a little differently depending on who, what vendors they have in their network, how they've implemented it. So, it's going to bring in some more complexity when we get to that stage. So.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. That sounds good. Well, hey, Blake, definitely appreciate the great insight. Obviously, it's a great, interesting topic. We definitely appreciate you kind of providing some depth there on a lot of that as well. That's, I'm sure, helpful for a lot of our viewers here, for myself as well. So I definitely appreciate the insight on that today. And maybe down the road, we can do some more of these that are even more in depth once my knowledge base grows as well. But for everybody involved, it's always good to kind of get some more in-depth insight into what's happening out there. So definitely appreciate the insight on topic today. And hopefully we can touch base again soon. Well, thanks for watching this week's show, and make sure to check out our next NFV SDN Reality Check when we are scheduled to speak with Canonical on its view on OpenStack development and deployment by telecom operators. Thanks for watching.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.